Welcome back to the Glass Ceiling Talk. I'm your host, Jordan. And today we're going to talk about the misunderstanding of capitalism. I see all over social media, especially Twitter, Facebook, sometimes Instagram, but not really, but mostly Twitter and Facebook. People talking about they don't like capitalism. That was a whole campaign about not liking capitalism or not going with a different form of government. Bernie Sanders. And I've realized people have this thing about capitalism. They don't really understand what capitalism is. They think what they think capitalism is isn't really capitalism. It's the idea of capitalism, but it's more capital greed than it is capitalism. So today we're gonna talk about capitalism. Um, so I want there to be a real understanding of what capitalism is. It is the economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production and the operation of profit. Central characteristics are including private property and the recognition of property rights, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, a price system, and competitive markets. Which means you're able to pay your employees whatever you want as long as they agree. You're able to make as much as you want, and as long as you pay taxes and donate a percentage of what you make to charity or to some sort of organization outside of you that is helping better the community, whether it's your community or somebody else's community or whatever, the government can't get involved. Like they can't do anything. As long as you're paying your taxes and donating a percentage of what you make, the government can't do anything to you, can't say anything to you, can't do anything to you. That is true capitalism. That also means abolishing minimum wage. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and it was the one with Peter Schiff. If you haven't listened to it, I would definitely recommend it. He does talk a lot, and you just have to. And it took me some time to really get through it. It's about a 3 hour interview, so I mean, it definitely took me some time to sit and listen to it. But if you find the right spots to listen to it, he's spitting some real knowledge. He's talking about how the government, what's wrong with the government, why it's the way it is, what could help to make it better, what capitalism is. Talking about capital greed, which is what is perceived as capitalism, but it's not capitalism. Um, and Peter Schiff, he is a economist, financial broker, and dealer of art, or a dealer and artist, or something like that. Um, but he was saying in the podcast, he was talking about the part I'm talking about. He was talking about minimum wage and why minimum wage is so bad. Because if you have, say, you're a boss, we'll just say you work. I'm trying to think of a good example. We'll say you work at a grocery store. We'll do that. You say you're a boss of a grocery store. You're a manager, general manager of a grocery store. Minimum wage is $15 an hour. So that means you have to pay all your employees $15 an hour, no matter how much. At least $15 an hour. Doesn't matter how much experience they have. Doesn't matter what they've done in the past. They at least got to get paid $15 an hour. So that means everybody who's not worth that $15 an hour gets cut out from that job. So that means young people, especially teenagers, especially people who just got out of school, they'll probably be able to get a job. But that cuts out like half of the people who would be interested in that job because they wouldn't be worth that $15 an hour, from not just what they do in the job, but from their work experience, their knowledge of the job. You can't count on someone who hasn't done it before and pay them $15 an hour. But if there's no minimum wage, and I'm not saying that people are going to be working for free. You obviously have to. You obviously the other party obviously has to agree to the terms and to the money, and like, okay, that's fair. But if you're a teenager. You're 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever. You still live at home. You don't really have any. You don't have any bills to take care of. You don't have any real responsibilities. You can make $8 an hour because you just doing it to have spending money. You don't have a real necessity for money, and you can go in there and not really exactly slack off, but you don't have to do the same type of work as everybody else who's an adult who has all these responsibilities, who's making $15 an hour. You can go in there and pretty much just shadow around, just walk around, make sure stuff is put up, do these little minimum jobs, make sure the bathroom's clean, whatever. But with that, it gives more people a job, more people opportunities for jobs. And with the minimum wage, it doesn't, because it cuts off people without a certain amount of, not recommendations, but certain amount of skills. $15 an hour is saying you have a certain amount of skills and you can match up with what the job entails you to do. And obviously, not necessarily that does that correlate. And obviously, a lot of teenagers who'd be wanting to make $15 an hour, obviously, but we should get rid of the minimum wage. Prices will go down because they're not having to pay all their workers, even the ones who aren't worth the $15 an hour, the $15 an hour. Like, that's like saying you buy I'm sorry. But that's like you buying, we'll say you buy Netflix. You buy the premium thing of Netflix. But once you start watching it, you realize it's not really the premium thing of Netflix. You're really paying for the basic thing of Netflix. So you're paying all this much more money for this little amount of whatever it is. I mean, I guess you're paying to have less commercials, but you realize there might not be a whole lot of commercials, but there's a lot more commercials than you probably realize or probably think about, and that's probably not a good example. I'm trying to think of an example. All right, what then? Anyway, I can't think of another example right now. That's all I do with money. I can't think of one right now. But anyway, I'm pretty much made my point. The way we are lined up right now, we're paying people, and I'm not saying this is everybody. Everybody goes through their job differently and does their job differently. But just say you have someone who doesn't really care. They're just there because they need money. You're paying them $15 an hour, but they only give you $10 worth of work. That's $5 that you're losing, that the company is losing, because that worker isn't doing their necessary job of what would help them benefit from that $5 they're not getting from that person. So if somebody else is going to have to do it. So saying if the other person's working their 15 hours, they're having to put, or $15, they're having to put $20 in with their hourly wage of just $15. So I mean, obviously I'm not really a math person, so it's more mathematical, and he goes into it. So I would definitely check that out. But that's my big thing. Capitalism isn't bad. Capitalism is great. That means small government. That means prices will go down. After you get rid of minimum wage, prices will go down because people aren't going to be making as much. And the people who are, it's going to fluctuate from the people who are making so much to the people who aren't making as much. And it's going to grow the difference. Like, the difference isn't going to be, it's going to be a more wide range of people making a lot of people making money. So there'll be people who are making 18, there'll be people making 15, people making 12, making 10, five, or not five, but eight, whatever the case may be, and whatever that person decides they want to make, you have to, but you have to earn it. You're not just give it, like it's not just given to you because you want to work. The wage you want to make, you have to earn it. And if I was a boss, like if I had my own company, what I would do, I would put in the contract, we have the right to determine if you deserve to make more or less that next upcoming year. So depending on your work and how you work, I have the right to take away some of that or add something to it because of how you worked through that past year. That's how I would do things. Obviously, that's not really legal because of the minimum wage and because you came to an agreement on a price. But again, if you're just honest with people and you tell them this is how much you're worth, they might be upset, but they're like, okay, you got it. But I also wanted to talk about socioeconomic. Hold on. And if you don't know what socioeconomic is, it is the structured order. It is the structured order of ideas and common ownership of the means of production, in the absence of social classes, money, and the state. Which is saying everyone will be considered equal. The government will control everything. This is exactly what Bernie Sanders' ideology was. I'm sure it wasn't as... what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't as strict as what it really is. But that's basically what that's what his platform was. Socioeconomic. That means no matter what you do, you will only be able to work at certain... So that's saying no matter what you do, no matter what your job is, no matter how hard it is, no matter how many days you work, you can only work a certain amount of days, you can only work a certain amount of hours, and you can only make a certain amount of money. So, I mean, there's obviously going to be a difference in how much money you have. So there's no really negotiating. You're making whatever the last person made. So no matter if they've been working there for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, they're going to be making the same amount of money as they did when they first started. Now, I'm sure there might be some way to get raises and stuff like that. But basically, that's what it is. You make the same amount of money for the same amount of work you do each and every day. There's no overtime. There's no extra days you can get. You're working. If you work 40 hours, you're just working 40 hours, and that's it. No overtime, nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. It also means the government will control how many kids you have, what kind of food you can eat, how your food is made, your health care. That's what a lot of people were excited about, healthcare and free school. But with those, that also limits what you can learn in those situations. Like, well, with school, I mean, that limits what you can learn because they're going to focus on what they need to, the basics. They're going to focus on the basics. And then if you want to go on to something else, you have to pay for that. That's socioeconomic. Remember, capitalism is doing it yourself, is getting it yourself. Not really yourself, but you're free to do pretty much whatever you want to. As long as it's not illegal, you can do whatever you want to, make as much money as you want to. And as long as you're paying your taxes and donating it, no one can tell you anything else. No one can tell you otherwise. But capitalism, basically the government controls everything you do. They control everything. Now, I'm saying that they have companies who focus on those different things, but they all go through the government. They're all ran by the government. They're all funded through the government. And with the healthcare, they tell you when you can go to the hospital. Like, they'll give you some dates. You say, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I broke my foot. Okay, here are some days for you to go to the hospital. You can only go these days because this is what the days that your insurance covers. If I have a broken foot, I want to be able to go to the hospital whenever I need to go to the hospital. As soon as I broke my foot, not have to wait, not have to call, not have to wait for my insurance to get back to me, or wait for them to pay it off or whatever. However, I mean, I don't know how it works, but those are all things that they have to control with a socioeconomic society. And I also want to talk about capital greed. Capital greed does have something to do with capitalism. It does vary off of capitalism. But the difference of capitalism and capital greed is companies who are powerful staying powerful. That means when they get bailouts, they're the first one to ask for a bailout, and they get the most money from those bailouts. It's your Walmarts, your McDonald's, your Disney's, whoever else. That's all of them included. Now that, and they do it not for the benefit of their employees. They do it for the benefit of themselves, to save their ass, to save their company per se, and they're money hungry. That's what capital greed is. Someone who's money hungry. They're just in it for the money, and they're in it to make as much money as they possibly can. They don't care about their employees. They don't even care about the people who are right under them. They care about themselves and saving their business, making sure their profit margins are good. That's capital greed, not capitalism. And that's the biggest thing I've seen people talk about being capitalism. That is not capitalism. That is capital greed. Being money hungry and exploiting people. But that's all I got for you today. Y'all know what to do. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Follow me on Twitter, Big Papa Russell. Instagram, Jovid23 _. It'll be in the thing below, the description below. And you all have a great day.